welcome to the official Concert Creatures podcast. And today we're joined by a special porter. We're going to go with porter.
Yeah,
I think
let's
we're
do
gonna
it.
go with porter. Special porter, friend of the show and sister podcast, Matt.
What's up, Bobby? I feel like
What's going on?
I'm the BB to your porter.
No. You're more like Doll Man because he goes
I'll take
everywhere.
I'll take it. I'll hang off in a weird frame rate.
I love Doll Man. Like he's one of my favorites, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, how are you doing? Because like I know that we're going through extinction level heat wave right now.
Yeah, it is atrocious. I'm all right, man. Staying the hell inside. I took one step outside and I was like, nope, never mind. You know what? The deliveries will all be done digitally today. How you holding up?
I'm ready to just move somewhere where it's just like
Not this.
Icicles every day. But nah, you know what? We're not talking about what's going on in this world. We're talking about what's going on in the world of Death Stranding, and specifically in Death Stranding 2 on the beach, which is out in early access. Actually, surprised. You know what? I'm surprised. PlayStation's never done early access, but it's out early access on June 23rd.
24th, I think.
24th. See, I'm even see. No, it's my fault.
Yeah.
June 24th.
24th, and then full launch is the 26th.
Right, but embargo is June 23rd, and that's the date we all have on our heads because you know that if we break it, we're basically getting extinguished out like the BTUs.
We are going to get taken off of the chiral network.
Yeah, I don't want that. I like my connection to fabricating.
Same, dude. I would not want to give that up.
Exactly. But today, we're not going to be doing any crazy spoilers. We're just maybe light story stuff. Nothing to obviously worry about, but that'll come later. We're definitely doing a spoiler cast. We've confirmed we're going to be doing it because there's a lot to talk about, and I feel like we need to kind of put it out in the open and let everyone know, you know, this is a really cool story, and we want people to, you know, play it and then come back and listen to the episode once we're all done and dusted on that. But let's start from the top because you and I have both played it. We've had it for a couple of weeks now. You finished it first. I literally closed chapters last night. Like high level thought. Like, what do you think of Death Stranding 2?
I loved it. I think it is a sequel in all intents and purposes in the best way. I think it takes a lot of what made the original so special and brings it to a new place. It feels like the second chapter, not only in its the way that its gameplay's evolved, not only in the expanded focus on combat, but in the way that it takes parts of what you loved and expected from the first and kind of turns it on its head. There are things that I missed from the first game, but it's not that anything that I would change. It's just that certain decisions are made in certain ways that things are done that I do think fit better in the context of what they're doing with the second one.
Yep.
But because of those changes and because of the ways that they handled it, these two experiences do sit side by side. I had an incredible time with it. I think the story here is better. I think a lot of decisions that they have made is better. There are things that I think aren't any better or for worse. There's a certain thing that we'll talk about as we go that I find is unchanged from the first one, and that's to its detriment. I feel like, you know, the boss fights haven't evolved, and I feel like that was a recurring problem in the first one. But high level is just, I loved it. I think it is my favorite out of the two, and I had a blast. What about you, Bobby?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, and even our reviews, because like we had to just, you know, make sure we're not crossing any toes. But yeah, we both have of the same opinion. I think it's a really good sequel. It's a really great introduction to this world if you're not looking to play the first one, because obviously there's a recap that's online right now. If you're, you know, into that, there's one on the main menu, and it goes over everything with a lot of detail and explains, you know, who everybody is, what everything's happening, and that's a great way to just, you know, introduce players who don't want to play the first one. And yeah, I mean, it has a lot of things that have been improved. I honestly feel like it's a lot more streamlined in regards to, you know, how you're unlocking things, how you're building things, how you're talking with people, how you're connecting with them, how you're progressing through everything. And yeah, ultimately, yeah, it's just like it's such a great way to show that Kojima's still on the ball. I think it's probably one of my favorite games that he's put out. I think it might be my favorite game that he's put out. And like I'm someone, who's played everything he's put out in the last 30 years, but something about this world, something about these characters, the music, the ideas, just like there is some philosophical stuff happening later on that kind of really
Mm-hmm.
shows you that he knows what he's talking about, what he wants to do, and how he wants to do it, and that he doesn't want to just make something for the mainstream that everyone will idealize and love, and want to talk about so positively, because the more you play, you start seeing where he might be concerned that it's just too good.
Mm-hmm.
So like Kojima is like a director, incredible. As an author, amazing. As a story writer, I think he's probably delivered his best thing yet. And yeah, I'm ultimately excited. Like I really feel like there is, I mean, likely going to be a third game. There's no way there's not going to be. There's just too much happening. There's just too many out larger than life characters. Like there's no way there's not enough. Like there's so much content with every character you meet. Like there's established backstories. There's relationships. Like there's all these things that he's built towards, and there's no way that he just caps it off at two. Like I feel like with Metal Gear no longer on the table, this is his new magnum opus. It's Death Stranding.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that this is probably my favorite Kojima story. It's interesting because I feel like it's also his most accessible.
It's the most
Uh,
human story. That's what I
yeah,
think.
and I feel like because of a lot of the heavy lifting done by one, and if you are going to try to go into this not
Yeah.
having not played the first one, I do recommend going, and there is a lot of really heady stuff that, because of the groundwork laid by the first one, the second one you already have that base work, and I do think that's important with where he goes and the things that he kind of focuses on and dives into, because there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be laid for you to really connect with the story. But I do feel that, like, if that groundwork is there, it is probably, like, yeah, I think you nailed it, his most human but also his most accessible story. I actually knew what was going on for like 80 to 85% of the time, and then of course Kojima is going to do what Kojima is going to do, and he's going to take things in a direction that I don't think anybody expects or can really parse upon first playing. I'm already looking forward to like the YouTube videos that are going to deep dive into what
Oh yeah, 100%.
what things mean. But up until that point, I was following the story despite Kojima's knack for taking things in a way that's just like, what are you talking about? What does any of this mean? It's digestible and it's accessible in a
It's
way that, without sacrificing what makes it Kojima, I think.
That's probably the best way to put it. His most digestible game is this one, and like that's probably that's not like a disservice to what he does, right? It's just,
Mm-hmm.
if you know Kojima, his games rarely follow a linear path. Like there's so many things that are going on, you have trouble keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, ultimately, like this just like from the start to the finish, I was basically, you know I want to say, what's the word I want to use? I was on the up on, basically what I'm saying is, like, I understood, like I said, I understood what was going on. Like I wasn't trying to be like a outsider peeking in. Like I felt like I was part of the conversation with these characters.
Mm-hmm.
They were explaining everything with just enough exposition. It's not like some of his older stuff where there's just too much exposition. Because
Yep.
like literally there are games that he has where there's like an hour and a half of exposition, and like I feel like that's like such a bad way to keep people playing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, everything kind of worked out in that regard. There are a couple of instances I feel in the beginning that were a little bit, they weren't as clear and cut as I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
because there were a couple seconds in the first two chapters. Like, that's specifically where I want to talk, not talk, like focus on. I was like, is this really happening, or is it something that is this like a rug pull? He's gonna say do something after, and like it wasn't clear enough for me. But the rest just was like, great, okay, this is actually, he's not trying to pull any punches. It's just, here's the story. But I think that kind of shows that, you know, the stakes were set from the beginning and like this is what they're always going to be, but there were no secrets in the going forward. It was just like, here's what happened and here's why it's happening.
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of. I do think he makes good use of setup, and then something
That's
like
exactly it.
I do feel like there's a lot like this game is more focused on the twists and the reveals to some
Yeah.
extent, and when they hit, you're like, oh, okay, the thing I didn't understand before, I now understand, and
Yep.
expertly done.
Yep. Yep. And more so to the fact, like, we can come back to the story, but like, I want to kind of like maybe move towards the first things we do. Like, you're introduced to the corpus, which is a great tool for people who you know, like you and me, who are aware of what's going on and what all this stuff means. But it also helps people who might not be familiar with the world, like what every term is or
Mm-hmm.
how every system works, because it's very thorough. Like, I love that. But I was checking the corpus pretty often through like the 45 hours I played. Like, I was like, okay, Sam or Dollman said something. Let's go back, and then it would shake exactly. It would basically give you a nice little summarization of what they're talking about and like why this is happening, or like what led to this, or like, you know, if I'm trying to do some of um the VR missions, like I'd have to go back and just check how to do like a certain move for like a melee focused training session. Like, it was great. Like, everything was just compartmentalized into that one category of the menu, and it was like a bible for everything. Like, everything you need to know, everything you should be aware of was there, and like, I love that. So like, kudos to whoever thought, you know, that this is what we should do. It really helped, you know, give you the um the overall bigger brush strokes of what's happening and like
Yeah,
why.
it's a great reference point to just kind of come back
It's a
to,
great
like,
reference point.
if you ever get lost, or even if like you kind of if you step away for the game for a few days because life
Yep,
happens and you're busy, coming back
yep.
and there's helpful like chapter breakdowns. This is what you've done so far, this is where things are going, here are terms you might need to remember, here's a brief thing on a character. Like, it's just a really great touch base to be like,
Oh,
okay, hold
100%.
on, what was that one thing? Oh, okay, there's something readily available at
Yep,
hand here for me to be able to re-figure out what I need to know.
yep. And then, yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, there's just a lot of care put into this game, and I'm not saying the first game didn't have it, but there's just so much more extra. Like, it's not just, you know, the first game. The first game was great, but this one has a lot more optional stuff. Like, you can, you know, like, read about or learn about or interact with. Like, just half the conversations I had in a game were optional, and they were so good.
Hmm.
And just, you know, my favorite stuff was like sitting with Dalman in my quarters, just talking to him, because he was just
Hmm.
like, he always had something to say. And then, you know, just speaking with like even like Tarman, or just, you know, having Fragile available to like talk and like use the SSS. Like, I love the Strand social services. Like, I love all that stuff, and like, it shows that this world has grown in 11 months. That, you know, Sam connected America to the UCA and the Crown Network, and like how quickly the world has kind of evolved, because like it's kind of like an industrial revolution, right? So
Hmm.
it's that
I
kind of same fallacy, right? You have this gap of like time, and the world basically like revolutionized overnight, and that's what it was, and it's crazy.
I do
And
I do think that you kind of hit on a point for me that, like, in that's a massive difference compared to the first one. I feel like the first one is a much lonelier
oh, it's way
experience.
that's the thing, right? Because you're basically by yourself. You're not really talking to everybody. You had Lou with you in the first game, and whoever you would, you know, speak to at like the various stations and stuff. But like this one, there's so much more. Like, you're always
Hmm.
talking to somebody. You're always coming across porters in the wild, just basically walking around, and you're talking with them, and you're giving them likes, and
Hmm.
there's more enemies. It's not just like I would go like kilometer stretches in the first game and not see anything or
Yep.
anybody. Now it's like I'm in Australia and I'm seeing wildlife, I'm seeing people, I'm seeing different bases with people, with people you can like connect to and use your Cupid on, and it's just like there's just so much more to it. And you have the you know, the Magellan that's basically following you as you're unlocking new points in the map, and it's great because it's like, well, they're always right behind me. These people are
Hmm.
always with me, and it's great. But it still feels like a lonely trek for Sam.
Those in between moments that still capture that loneliness from the first one, but
Oh, 100
they're
percent.
surrounded by character, and they're surrounded by like the DHV Magellan, which is like this massive ship that you'll travel
It's such
on.
a great ship. I love the ship. I think it's such a great addition. But I actually want to make sure that when people play this game, that they think of Metal Gear Rex, because it is literally Metal Gear Rex that you're flying in.
Yeah,
And
and
like I love that he's just like Kojima's just like, well, fuck you guys. I'm doing whatever I want.
yeah.
Here's a Metal Gear. Here's a Metal Gear.
Yeah, and it's because of that ship that I feel like the game feels much more like Mass Effect almost like, or it feels
It
much
feels
more
like a
on the
Max Effect
team,
game.
right? Because like you're interacting with folks on the ship, there's always somebody around, and even that social network that you mentioned previously, you're getting updates from them, you're getting pictures. There's it just feels like you're much more connected to everybody around you, and the personalities, they're big, they're memorable. Each one of them has a moment, along the way in the story that that makes you connect with them, or is just badass. There's just much more of it. The in between moments as you're going to connect a new area, yes, they still that loneliness is still there, but it's not as pervasive across the entire experience as it was in the first one, in my opinion.
Yep.
And I do think it works for what they're doing with the second one. It's just that like I did find myself missing it at points, but I wouldn't have traded it because the crew is so good, and the story and everything they do with it, and the connections that you build with these people is so fascinating to dive into, that it feels like a much grander experience and a much more
Yeah.
connected experience this time.
Yeah. So let's start with this, because like we're talking about the characters. Let's start with a big thing. What do you think of the maps? Because we have two maps this time,
Hmm.
and we have Mexico, which is a pretty sizable tutorial map, which really does a great job to acclimatize you and me, like returning players, but
Hmm.
also show newcomers just like the versatility of the Decima engine, and basically what it can do.
Hmm.
I want to see what you thought of the maps, because like we're going from a very unique Iceland inspired map, right? Like the first game was very basically Iceland coded. Like I felt like you're exploring the country, right?
Hmm.
Now you have two. You have Mexico and you have Australia, and they're two very different places. But like,
I think they're great. I think that they're also both very visually different, and even the terrain. Mexico feels like the training wheels. Like it's more straightforward. It's more kind of what you've come to expect. It is not like it's easy to move across. It still has its inherent difficulty, but it's a much more straightforward map. While Australia, while not true to real life in its geography, there isn't like a massive mountain in the middle of the map like there is like it here, but in Australia, in this one area, they pack in so much different environmental biomes. You have the grasslands, you have the desert, you have the mountains. Like there's so much in this one space that
yep,
like as you're moving through it, you're never in the same place for long, and before you know it, you're in a completely different visual environment that requires different approaches, that requires a different way to handle things. So I thought that they nailed it. Well, I do think like you mentioned, the first game, everything kind of flowed into one another. The second one feels much more like here's a new cool space, here's a new cool space, here's a new cool space, and like
right,
they all kind of come together in a way that makes sense and that has that kind of like visual bleed through. But I kind of think they nailed it. Like I think that it felt very different in its environments compared to the first one in a way that I think is important.
yeah, I feel like the same thing. I love the fact that you start off in a desert, and then you start slowly unlocking like a forest, and then you get like plains, and then you get um I don't want to spoil the rest because this stuff was
Same,
actually pretty
yeah,
cool. But like
exactly, yeah.
it was cool. Like it leads to like a very like a variation of. I feel like like a good comparison is Horizon's World. Like I started feeling like it was like okay, all right, this I see what they're kind of doing, and like it works. But yeah, I feel like Australia's a great place to explore. The first, I would say like 10-15 hours I had with connecting Australia were probably my favorite, because like there was a really good stretch of like 4 or 5 locations that were just so perfectly placed, and there was like really very few things keeping me uh, at bay. Like I would basically be able to go from place to place, deliver whatever I needed there, get get the materials to build the highways, and then have the highway available from the outset.
Hmm.
And then as I started going east, because you're starting west to east, you're getting stuck with like BTs showing up more presently, and they're a lot bigger and scarier this time. Like I don't remember them being so massive and like terrifying, because they were
Hmm.
before, they were just kind of in the air. Now, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a couple years since I played the first one, but like the sky turned red, and then like they're moving around now, and they're actually stalking the area instead of just like lingering in the air, and like, and then when they catch you, like it's like a heartless pops up from Kingdom Hearts. Like it's very different. So like my assumption is like everywhere the Death Stranding happened, that they're different kind of BTs.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
that's
I'm with you entirely. I think that like the BTs feel they terrified me in the first one, but this time I felt it's interesting because I feel like the first little while of the game, they keep that terrifying nature. They do more with the like you mentioned with the environment where it turns red and stuff. And like even just different types of BTs. But
yep.
as you progress, and like as we've kind of touched on with a greater focus on combat in this one, I was much less scared of them as I went
Oh
because
no.
I felt much more
Yeah.
equipped to handle them. But in the first like 10 to 15 hours, they are
Yeah.
horrifying. And again, when
There.
if you get caught and you cause a void out, there's just a massive crater in the area that we're like, oh well, I guess that area is gone now. There's just a big hole here and that's
Yep.
my fault. There's no
Yep.
do-overs. There's no way to fix that. You caused a massive explosion, and then that's what happened. But like because again, because of the greater focus on the combat, there's ways to handle them, and you have more tools and you have more ability
Oh
to
yeah.
kind of go up against them. Um,
Look,
but they're always scary.
they're terrifying, and then like it's just the music that's playing and like the sounds they're making. But yeah, like just the fact that you have so much more uh available. Like you have so many grenades, you have so many different guns now that are specifically created to shoot at BTs. So like they're basically like they're not they're a challenge, but they're not a terrifying challenge. Like like you said, I'm not scared to face them anymore. Like I know they're coming. I pop a grenade out, and you get 5 charges per grenade. So like in 3 or 4 hits, it's gone.
Mhm.
So like you just have to be careful, right? Because like they move when they see you, they move fast. And like they're unpredictable, and that's kind of what
Yep.
I liked about it, is that they're coming at you, and you have to kind of listen to where they're coming from, because as soon as they see you, they disappear, and then they come out from anywhere. And yeah, like you said, the void outs are terrifying. Like to have that happen, it's like, oh crap, what
Yeah.
do we do? Like what can I do? And there's nothing you can do. It's basically like, well, you got to move on.
Mhm.
And to really drive it home, the bosses in this game are super terrifying. I feel like they're probably the best bosses in terms of just like intimidation, but
Mhm.
in execution, I didn't like a lot of them. I honestly don't understand why we're doing everything like it's like a watery boss battle. I hate it. I just don't get it. It's just so clunky. I feel like that's what kind of always took me out of it. It was always just like, oh, a boss is coming. Well, here comes this black water that comes rising out, and then you got to fight that while fighting this thing that moves so fast. And
It's just
the
frustrating because like I feel like it was the most common criticism that I saw leveled at the
yeah,
first
it
game was
was
that
like
like
they didn't even listen.
the boss fights just they're like they always
But some
fight
of them are cool though. Like some
they're
of them are really cool, but like to actually play them, like
yeah
I don't
they're
know. I just like the first one kind of took me out of it. Like the first boss battle was probably one of the hardest for me,
same.
because yeah, you haven't played this the series in like 5 6 years, and then the first one's pretty early on in the game. Like you pretty much meet them in Mexico, the first boss, and like what happens? You basically have to fight for your life against this thing, and rightfully so. Like I understand that, but like it's just the way that it's just so clunky, and like you're
It's like
trying to dodge, and you have to dodge all this time, and like when you dodge, you have to also look at like how far away the boss is, because there's a lot of depth to these things. Like it's strike from a distance, so it's like
mhm.
there's all these things going on, but like you're still fighting this tar water, and it's like why does it have to be tar water every time?
It's just like they are visual spectacles, but
Oh,
but but
amazing.
but because of that, like they are also just like you mentioned, they're just not fun to play. You're battling you're fighting yourself and the ground that you're on
100%.
as much as you are trying to fight the boss. And like you mentioned, the dodging continues to suck. You just basically, it's a prayer and like which direction you're going to throw yourself in, because like, and the thing is, there are better dodges. There's like quick steps that you can do on normal land when you're fighting normal enemies that don't exist in the boss battles because of the sludge. So it's like all you end up doing is like empty your clips and empty your grenades as fast as possible.
And then you gotta wait
Trudge,
for then you
trudge
gotta wait for
around.
those, yeah, and then you gotta wait for those other like random like porter ghosts or whatever they are to
Yeah,
throw more items at you, because you might not
because
all, you never get
exactly.
prepared, right? So you come in, you're never prepared. I had
And
some
even
instances where I had one gun and like maybe one grenade, and
and
then I
even
was like, well, I got nothing. I can't do anything for the next 5 minutes. I have to keep just run in a circle and wait for items to like just pop up.
and even when you are prepared, like
Yeah,
you can't bring too much in because you get knocked down. You get things
and
like
you lose
you
it. Yep.
and it's hard to move through. So bringing in too much stuff is an issue for you. So it's like they're visually cool to look at, and there's some pretty cool moments in these boss battles throughout. But because there's some pretty repetitive nature. It's always the same cycle of attack as much as you can, try and sludge through your way through to pick up new guns, attack as
Yep.
much, like that cycle never breaks. And it's just like, it's unfortunate because everything wrong with the boss battles in the first one is still present front and center here. It's like the one thing that like they just didn't touch at all. They kind of just doubled down on. There are cool things that you can do that I don't want to spoil here, but it's like
We'll talk
it's
about it
it's
next
it's not
time.
something, yeah, it's not something that you can rely on enough that like is whatever. But like, yeah, the boss fights just stay as well. If you liked him in the first one, you liked him in the second one. If you didn't like him in the first one, you're not going to like him here.
Yep. And that's fine. You know what? Everything else is good, as moved the needle so far ahead. It's like, okay, this is something I'll, if I have to, I'll drop the difficulty and just play it through there.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it once, but I mean, it was only because like I was fighting for time to finish the game. Otherwise, I would have just tried it again. But like ultimately, yeah, the boss battles, whatever. I mean, there are some really cool stuff, but it feels like an afterthought because everything else was more of like the focus, like more better story or more gameplay systems, and more things to deliver and more people to see. And fine, that's fine, that's a good
Mm-hmm.
trade-off for me. I'll take it because it's like I said, they're not obviously not the worst boss battle. They're not bad by any means. They're just not any different.
Yep. Yep.
Speaking of gameplay systems, let's talk about melee and stealth and all the things Sam can now do a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think? Do you feel like this is finally Kojima's uh, his new Metal Gear? Like, it feels so Metal Gear Code at this point. If it was Solid Snake, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think
He
for me,
basically has all like the tools now to basically be a super soldier.
yeah, it's that you have a much bigger combat,
Yeah,
arsenal this time around from the melee, where it's like, yeah, there's much more that you could do. Um, but like, approaching an encounter, you basically have like, you can stealth your way through, picking enemies quietly and like really kind of skulk your way through the camp, hiding in grass as you go, taking out people with your strand. You could go in guns blazing and fight your way through, or you can kind of go around the area entirely if you want to, fighting harder terrain in its place. I do feel that like, while everything is better here, I don't think it's at that Metal Gear level yet. I still do feel that like, just because of the way that this game is designed and the way that you how much you have to carry, Sam never feels as agile as Snake ever did. I think we're getting closer to that, but
yeah,
what is here feels a lot better. There are so many more guns. There's so many ways to deal with the problems. Everything, like even stealth, I will say, I think with stealth, the one thing that I struggled with was that because of the visual identity of the game, even when I marked enemies, I found them kind of hard to track sometimes,
yeah.
just because I found that like the very like light blue on the backgrounds like would kind of get lost at points. Um,
Right,
but like, there's a lot more combat, and I feel like it works better as a pacing mechanism now, where like you'll have a couple of longer deliveries, and then you have a more combat focused ones. They're quicker, but they're much more action packed.
right.
I thought that the combat is what it should have been in the first game. Everything that like people had complaints about here is much better here. It feels a lot better. I was actually pretty much like a 50-50 split between handling things, running in, guns blazing, just tearing up the place, and sneaking around and kind of being that much more stealthy approach. And I find either way totally works. Like both of them are incredibly viable options. And you have much more tools to do both this time in a way that's just a lot more fun to do.
Yep, I agree with you on that. I honestly found myself doing more stealth than anything, and I think the combination of to make it work really was just like you said, mark targets and then have smoke grenades always available. And like once you've had those two items, like you were basically impervious to being caught. And I honestly can't remember if this is part of it. Like I don't know in the first game if you could just leave your backpack laying behind
No,
you.
you couldn't. You couldn't.
Okay. When you have that, because now you have this option to leave your backpack with like your tricycle, and I would normally do that. Like I'd park somewhere, I'd leave my stuff on the bike, and then I'd move into a base. And like because I don't have that backpack anymore, they wouldn't see me as often. And like I think that's kind of like the key part is I would always be near my limit. Like I would fill Sam up with so many deliveries, like he would struggle to walk. But because you have access to bikes from the outset, basically, it's like, well, I can do that. I can basically do more from the outset. So I started doing that, and then not having to worry about that backpack, he would never be seen. Like he runs so fast, he can slide. So like having those two with tall grass, like he's basically unseen. Like you would not see Sam coming in, and you unlock an item a little bit later on. I'm thinking like 15 hours in that lets you take enemies out from a distance, and it basically is non-lethal. So you could basically snipe without even being caught. And like it was just like, okay, well, I don't need to fight anymore. I could just do this. And like you get, I don't know if you get rewarded more for it or if you get more points, but like there are obviously some challenges where they don't want you getting caught. They don't want you, having deliveries, take damage, because when you're fighting, like you're not only taking damage, your package you're getting damaged. So like there's all these small things that have changed that are for the better. But then when you get caught, like honestly, Sam could, as long as Sam has the Maser pistol or a shotgun, nothing stopped me. Like he is just so, he's a one-man army in this game, and there's even some conversations talking about like how powerful he is, and it's kind of weird, but I like what they've done. I do love that the combat's a lot more focused on gunplay and being able to deal with enemies, and rightfully so, right? I mean, there's more people in the world now. Like it's more populated, so you are going to be coming across the brigands and all these different, like the cults and all that stuff, and like it's cool, and I love that. It's just great. And then you have like, I love how the strand's been improved. I love how you like melee is so much better. I love the fact that you can use L2 and Arch to like to block, and you can dodge, and then like you said, you have all these new moves that are not utilized in boss battles, but like when you have people, it's so great. It's so much more satisfying than to not sneak in. Like I love going in and then just meleeing everything and then putting people to sleep, and like it's fun. And that my favorite move that Sam has is that flying knee. It's just so powerful. Like you do that, and you can clear out a base pretty quickly if you're running low on ammo. Because I had a lot of instances where I had no guns, I had no ammo. I tried to limit what I'm carrying with me because I'd rather have more deliveries available instead of having like 4 guns and like a bunch of grenades. As long as I had anchors, a ladder, and some blood bags, everything else I was optional. That's all I cared about, was just making sure he had the bare minimum. And yeah, it's just so much more fun to play this game, because in the first game, like I even said in my review, all you really could do is either run or find one of their guns and hope that it's got some ammo, and that was a 50-50 chance. Like sometimes their guns were so limited on ammo, it was like, okay, well, you gotta hide. You got to find a post box. You got to hide, and that's basically your only options. Where it's just, tuck your tail between your legs and scatter. And yeah, I'm so happy with what it is. It's just a way better experience. It's way more fun. There's just this brilliant loop that I'm so glad is been found for this game and like what it could do. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this formula evolves. There's just so many cool things that Kojima's done that I'm like, okay, well, I hope this is not the end of it. There's no way. It's just so satisfying. It feels good. I'm hoping there's just like small things that can add it in the future. Like I'm surprised there's no way to Um, Actually, I'm not gonna say anything. We'll talk about the spoilers because like, that's
Mhm.
more I
Yeah.
want to talk about. That's more of where I want to go with that. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's been great. I'm so happy with what they've done. And where else do you want to go? I mean, honestly, I'm more excited for the spoiler cast. Like everything here is great.
I think
Let's
the
talk
last
about Let's talk about the actual deliveries. I don't know you because you did Golden Path. You basically went start to finish. Did
I
you
did
do any? Did you do a lot of like the commander or like the government in Australia or like the
I
did
did
you
a bunch of the sub stories. I didn't
yeah
do many of just the standard missions because
yeah
like you have like your main orders, which obviously progress the story. You have your sub stories, which
yep
are kind of that in between point where you'll get new items, new weapons, new blueprints, new upgrades, and then the standard missions kind of acts more of like that experience bump where you work out on kind of filling out your stuff. I didn't do as many of those, but I did do almost all of the sub stories, and then I did all of the. I obviously finished the game. Um, but yeah, no, I think there's like again there's a good mix in there of ones that are focused on combat, ones that are focused on taking you to one place and then taking you to a secondary target. I think there's a good they some of them are quite short, some of them are very long. So I feel like there's a good mix in there that
yeah
keeps the variety and the pace kind of constantly moving in different ways.
yeah. So I feel like the standard missions and the sub missions are a lot better in this game. Like I feel like they're a lot more. They're just like in God of War. Like you're doing a mission and you kind of learn more about the character you're doing. So if you go to the
Mhm.
musician, he starts talking about like his history and like why he's doing why he's a musician and like why you're collecting all these items he's asking for because they're linked to his past some way or like I can't remember the name. It's the old man. He's always like, oh man, the guy in the Australia. It's like old Joe or something. It's something weird.
Mhm.
But he's one of the first characters you meet, and like he kind of like explains who he is and why he is this way and like why like it. Every basically what I'm saying is every mission's basically a good way to learn about these characters and you're connecting with them, and that's kind of what the whole point of this game is, connecting again, right? So I didn't feel like the first game had as intricate of submissions and standard deliveries and stuff because they weren't as embedded in the characters. Like they were just kind of like, you got to do this, you got to go here, you got to get this, you got to bring it back, and that's kind of it. It wasn't really a reason for it.
Yeah, I do feel like they're more like I feel like the first game was more focused on the actual deliveries, while this one is more focused on the characters you're doing them for, to its benefit.
And it's fun learning that there's a lot of characters that are obviously based on real people. Like you have oh god, what's the musician's name? Jen. He's based on a character. I think is he a Japanese J-pop artist?
Possibly,
And then you have like George.
we should be careful here because we have to be careful with who we talk about.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
be
let's
careful.
show them.
I know.
Okay, we won't talk about. Let's characters like George Romero, who we always know as Tarman,
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like every character. Well, we're not. Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that episode. See,
yeah,
there's just so many things it's hard to talk about because it's just
yeah.
like everything I want to talk about is like kind of spoilery, but it's not.
I think the last thing that I think we kind of have to hit on is like the graphics and the music because like the graphics, like you mentioned, the
No, those
Decima
two
engine
are
is
wholehearted.
is
Well, there's still a couple things there's still so much I want to talk about in this one, but like yeah, let's talk about the let's start with the graphics and then we'll work towards the music because they're both so ingrained in the experience that
mm-hmm,
I want to discuss them. And I want to talk about the opening I'd say like opening half hour of Death Stranding 2 specifically because I think that's kind of where I lost my mind playing it on my TV because it was just like this is playable.
mm-hmm.
So you remember
Stunning.
what I'm talking about, right? That
Yeah.
opening scene where Sam and Lou are sitting down and you see like he's on that mountain and it's just like this is insane. This is an actual video game. This is not a movie. This is not pre-rendered. It's playable and you're able to move anywhere in the world. And to tie into the music, you can go down a pathway and it'll play the opening Woodkid song that was on that we saw that's been advertised pretty extensively,
Mm-hmm.
or you can start diverging to different pathways and the music starts diverging based on where you're going. So like one might have more of the melody, another one might have more of the hook on this side, and it's really cool that a lot of the songs that are on the official soundtrack do that as you're going through specific parts of the game that have when that's like that kind of like that thing you go over like a hill and the music comes on and you start seeing like who the artist is.
Mhm.
It always diverges and it's always tied to the gameplay or the graphics
Mhm.
and the vistas and the stuff that this engine's capable of doing, and it's really cool. I wish more developers had something like this, but it seems to be Kojima's the only one who wants to associate his games with like pop culture and some of the biggest artists in the world, and in a way that introduces them to people on the other side of the world, because there are a lot of really cool artists from Japan and there's a couple of artists from Iceland and obviously France with Woodkid. Like it's really cool.
I feel like the music and the environments are tied so intrinsically together because like the music is accompanied by the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, you finally crescendo over this like massive hill that you've been working on. The artist label pops up, the song title pops up, and you're just kind of like you're brought in and immersed into the experience in such a way. And like because
Oh
of the
yeah.
Decima engine, like there's so much detail in all of it. Like how like you walking through one place during the day and then walking in the same space at night is genuinely two completely different worlds. Whether the
Oh,
it's
100%.
it's bright and it's sunny and you can see all that rich detail, and then everything darkens, the sky opens up, the stars and like these like almost like celestial bodies that are hanging overhead. It's stunning. There's so much here that's just like I abused my photo mode here. Like the amount of time that I would just stop and be like, oh my god, I have to take a picture of this area. Playing with the camera, playing with the way that with Sam being there, with Sam not being there, it's just so rich in all of its in everything. And then like the music is just fantastic. And the cool
Yeah.
thing about this game is that compared to the first one, like you can actually have like playlist functionality as you move through the game, and as you do stuff, you'll get and unlock songs which you can then put on a playlist in game to be able to like re-listen to these things properly.
Oh, it's been so good. I love that about that. It's probably my that's probably my favorite addition is having a music player.
Mhm.
It makes such a difference because, like, honestly,
You feel
uh,
much more connected to the soundtrack this time
yeah,
because I feel like those
I
moments in the first game happened, and then you're kind of like, oh, okay, that song is gone now. While here it's like you can integrate them into your experience in such a tangible way.
exactly, and I love the fact that it's already mostly available on Spotify because I've already put it. I made a playlist specifically for this game.
Mhm.
It's got some really good music. Honestly, there's some really cool stuff I would have never heard otherwise. But wow, honestly, this is probably way better than the first game. I
Mhm.
Having Woodkid and Ludwig Vorsel working on this game together. Like, honestly, that's a winning team. Like even the like you have like the actual soundtrack that's all like licensed music, but like the actual in-game score is outstanding, and it's because you have two really hot, you know, inspirational like musicians working on it. Like these guys are like, at the top of their game right now. Like these are some of the biggest people in the world putting their talents to this game, right? Like they're the new, I would call them the new hotness, right? Like they are that good. Like they're just incredible, and like they clearly understand what the story is trying to convey and like what the emotions are during 98% of the music or the scenes going on. So like it's great. It's been amazing. Everything like honestly just comes together in a way that only Kojima's stories can really do. Like he's an auteur, man. Like he knows exactly like what every scene needs to be and like what the emotions need to be and like what you should be feeling at this point.
Mhm.
And he obviously he speaks to these composers and he says, "This is what I want. Bring it home," and they bring it home.
Yep, they nailed it.
Yeah, but ultimately, like honestly, I if Kojima just stops making games and starts making music, I'm in. Like honestly, him and these guys, they could probably make a Grammy winning album. They're just so incredible.
It's like he's just so involved in this whole process and anything that he puts together that like man, it's just you could feel his touch everywhere.
100%. Um, what else can we talk about? Like, there's really so many things, but ultimately, like,
There's so much that I want to talk about, but like I feel
let's
like
talk
so
about
much.
there are a couple things. Like, there's a lot more customization. Let's talk about the system, the gameplay systems. I feel like we're allowed to talk about like the changes, right? Because now with the UCA connected, obviously there's like the APS right now, right? So just to bring everyone up to speed, with when Sam connected America with the Chiral network, basically porters lost their jobs, and it was up to I think they automated the whole thing. It was like an AI powered system that basically replaced porters, and that kind of plays into the story, and it kind of shows just how, like I said, how quickly the world evolved and
Mm-hmm.
how things have kind of changed. But it also opened up a lot of opportunity. Like now, Sam, like let's talk about the Sam proficiency. Like, there's a lot more proficiencies now that you have to actually work towards. Like I don't feel like those were in the first game. I can't remember, but like there's a lot of changes. Like there's the gameplay change. Like we talk about melee, we talk about the stealth, all that stuff's great. But like I loved being able to just take Sam on a delivery and like cross, treacherous terrain, and I would actually gain a proficiency in my walking speed because I crossed, this terrain that had a bunch of rocks and boulders on it, or you work through like a stealth section and your footprints are quieter and you have more stamina and stuff like that, and like your endurance is up, it gets higher.
I feel
That's
like
so cool. It humanizes stuff. It it's just like, I don't know. As someone who goes to the gym, like that's kind of stuff that you do every day. Like you go to the gym, you lift weights, you build muscles. So your proficiency's rising just by doing the thing, right? You're doing the action, you gain the benefits from it.
yeah, it's much more like RPG, like almost in its
I like
systems
it.
where it's like
Oh yeah,
it responds to the way that you play. If you do a lot of stealth, you're going to level up stealth quickly. You're going to have upgrades and different things that come your way that are more focused on stealth. If you're more focused on rebuilding, if you're more focused on building up areas, like the game responds, and you kind of different areas in which you can upgrade Sam and Sam kind of levels respond to the way that you play. So if you want to focus on a certain area, you just play that way and the game rewards you for it. It's much more like integrated and almost like natural to the experience.
yeah. And there's stuff like, the more you use a gun, the better you are like handling that gun. Or there's what was the other one? There was like um it's basically I think it's like once you use more close combat, your punches get stronger, stuff like that. But like what I want to kind of focus on is like the actual skill tree, because there's a skill tree now, and I like the fact that it's a way to make your own unique version of Sam. So like for myself, I kind of always focused on stuff that would make him more just quieter and be able to like see what's coming at him, because like you can expand like sensor range, you can kind of see what the weather forecast is, you can use an
There's
aid
the stuff that
request. There's
the
like an
stuff
aid
that
request, yeah. So like there's a lot of, so to circle back, there's a lot of aid requests, and those are basically like Matt and I could basically like put a request out in the world and say it's like I need ammo, or I need a gun, and like you can activate this thing that basically like finds all the requests and helps you complete them in an order that kind of benefits you. And it's just like it's a really niche skill option you can have, but like it's, if you're someone who wants to go around aiding different players, like you can actually prioritize the ones that are there that will benefit you back. So like there's stuff like that that's really cool, and it's just like the skill tree is like it's not something you have to worry about. Investing your points in it, and if it sticks, it doesn't work. If you don't like what you're getting, you're not stuck with it. You just basically unselect it, and you get your points back, and you can reallocate them to any of the like the 25 30 things that are available there. And it's really cool because it's just like it gives you so much versatility in how you approach it. So if you want to move through a section of the map where there's maybe like 8 or 9 different kinds of character bases where you have to fight enemies, you can shoot all your points into to melee, or like guns, or using your Odra. I can't. Oh god, what's it called?
Odra deck.
Odra deck. Yeah, you can have the sensors be stronger, but they don't give off any light, so that you don't see you coming. So it's like there's a lot of versatility in the way your character works.
Yeah, and like you said, like you can, it's so flexible in that, like if you're going on a mission that's more focused on the movement, then you pour your points there. So like you're not ever locked into one thing. You're able to kind of respond to what you need to do next.
Yeah, and then to even make it a little bit more unique, I love the fact that you can now character you can customize your backpack with like it starts off with like basic like patches and stuff, but like once you get going, like there's some really cool anti-gravity things you can build. You can build grenade pouches, you can build ammo pouches, but like the grenade anti-gravity ones are probably the best just because like it gives you I think it basically just lets you carry more stuff and it offsets the weight because you just have these things where you can basically equip like 6 or 7 of them at a time. And it's just small things like that. It's just it goes a distance. It's just like you can really create this character that resembles what you want him to be instead of just being like, well, I'm Sam Bridges,
Mm-hmm.
like in the first game. And like, I love that.
Yeah, it's like if you want, more grenades and more ammo on hand, then you stack your backpack that way. And it's like there's just more that you can do with it there.
Yeah. And then I want to talk about the fabrication. I don't know how involved you get into the fabrication or building the highways and stuff. What did you think of that in the first game? Did you like that stuff? Did you get
I did.
involved?
I did a lot of that. Like I built like a lot of roads. I built a lot of the zipline networks. Like in the first one, I feel
Yeah.
like that isn't overly different here. I feel like that stuff
Yeah.
has pretty much been maintained in a way. Like the social
It's
systems here
still
and
there.
yeah, I engage with it pretty much as I did. Like when you get to certain sections, I spent like hours like just kind of making it better for not just myself but for those
Yeah.
that would journey next. So like I engaged with a bunch of it, and I feel like it's largely unchanged because I think the way that it functioned in the first one was good, and I didn't think it really needed much of an overhaul. While like this time it's like they do more of the same good that you need. There's different ways now. There's like there's like the um like there's like different tracks that you can build that kind of like
Yeah.
move large amounts of
We can talk
materials
about
and
the
resources.
monorail. We can
Yeah,
talk
the
about the
monorail.
monorail
That's the word I'm looking for.
because it's in the promotional images.
Hmm.
What do you think of the monorail? I honestly feel like it's probably out of all the fabrications, I think it's my favorite thing because it just gives you a way to transport everything at once. So if you need to build a highway, you can literally load every bit of ceramics or metal and put it in a crate and move it with not only Sam but your vehicle. Like
Hmm.
it's amazing. I feel like I wish the first game had this thing because it's so cool. I love riding it. It gives you a way to just to take a breather because if you want to cross the map, you can kind of just change the camera and kind of look around the world. And it's not a system where I'm concerned about because like I you just it's a way to take a breather.
No, agreed. I think that like it's cool. Like, and it's just like the visual aspect of riding. It just
Oh,
feels
it's
awesome.
amazing. And ultimately, like honestly, I feel like it's just that the landscape, like Australia's uh built for it. Like everything kind of just makes sense, and it's like okay, well, here's why they're doing it, and I'm kind of sad that it never showed up, but like I'm looking forward to seeing like what others are going to be doing with it once the actual servers are live and people are building things. I'm like, I would love to see how it kind of all comes together.
Same.
I'm just so for just to be clarifying, like the review period, we had access to the servers for I think it was like 2 weeks. Like I did see a lot of people that I know in the industry making stuff and stuff, building their own highways and like stuff. But like it's the last week it kind of it went down, it went offline just for whatever maintenance you're doing for launch this week. But it sucked because not having that access to that really makes a difference. I feel like, and that's kind of back to that playing that loneliness thing. It's so lonely when you don't have other porters making things easier for you, or
Hmm.
or you come across like a cache with like extra ammo or like container repair stuff. Like it's you can obviously find it in the open world through the mule post, but like coming across like a random mailbox that's got everything you need on top of a mountain. Like I missed that. Like it's just coming across it is like half the fun of using it. It's just like, oh, who put this here? And then you give them your likes, and like it's a fair trade. Like
Hmm.
you give the people that understand the game the likes, and like it goes to encourage them to keep doing it and building.
Yep. Agreed. Like those systems, they're just unlike anything else in any other game, and it's just like it makes it feel like a much more connected experience where you're connected to the community at large, and the things that you're doing benefit them, the things that they're doing benefit you, and it's just a really cool experience.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to seeing. Like I said, I want to see what this game's going to look like in like 6 months to a year once everyone's so comfortable with this game and the world's kind of finally transformed. There's a couple games I can't remember what it was. I think it was like it's just like a game where it's basically the world is everyone's working towards building this ideal version of this world. So like everyone's kind of like building bridges or establishing monorails or building outposts and it kind of just it's all done in real time. So we're all seeing what that culmination is of what everyone's work is being done. And I can't remember what game it was. I've seen that before, where it was just like, well, this character on this side of the world's building this guy on the other side of the world's doing the same thing, but they're working together on something. And it's just like I would love to see that kind of like the porters are all coming together to make Australia feel like this really unique assembled place where all the hard work pays off. Like for example, like the highways. I'd love to see what else can be done, what can be made when you give characters like the freedom to build and make this world kind of like their own vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, but other than that, like honestly, I feel like this is a really great game. I'm rating it 9 out of 10, so that when the review's live at the time of this, podcast going live, it's going to be out there. I would have given it a 10, but they're just like you said, there's a couple of things that really set this thing back, specifically the boss battles. And if that was addressed, I probably would have I would have given it a perfect game because otherwise it does feel perfect. There's nothing else I hate about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into the spoiler cast in a bit, but yeah, I agree. I'm gonna be giving it a 9 too. It improves on so much on what the first one is while making it fresh and different, and I'm really excited for people to get their hands on it this week because it's going to be really cool, like seeing all the screenshots and the people's reactions to the story and stuff. Like I'm excited to dive into all this next time.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, the photo mode, that's another thing we didn't touch a lot about. We probably do it in the spoiler cast, but like I took a lot of photos. Like I feel like at the time of today, like I'm over like 250 photos, at least 7 or 8 videos. There's just so much happening at once. So like even between cutscenes or like you come across like this little slice of the map after a rainstorm and you see like a rainbow, but then you also see BTs floating in the sky. It's just it's such a magical world. Like it that's why I kind of said like it kind of feels like Horizon in that regard because Horizon was just so beautiful and they're running on the same engine. So like you have a very tropical setting compared to Australia where it's very dry and like desolate and like you have dust blowing everywhere. And then you get to the jungle and it's like, oh, whoa, this game really is beautiful. Like it really is lush at some point. And then you've got like the water everywhere and the weather systems that really, really, really have been improved in this game. And there's just like it's crazy how more treacherous it is to deliver in this time, right? Because like we didn't even touch base on like some of the gameplay systems, like where you're actually going through a rainstorm or the sandstorm at the beginning or the lightning storm. Like all these little things that happen that are so unique that there's no way that a game like this could ever run on like a PS4. Like it's just so many weather systems, so many gameplay systems all coming together to make this world feel so like put together and real. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to get their hands on it. There's so much to dive into here.
Well, we'll be back next week for the spoiler cast. But until then, Matt, where can we find you?
Yeah, of course. You can find my writing here on the site, and you can also catch some more of my stuff over on buttwhyther.net. And come hang out with us on PlayStation Generation each and every Sunday at 8 p.m. EST live.
Live and in charge. And for some reason, Court's still there. I thought he would have retired by now because,
couldn't do it without him.
The pool. Guy wants to be by the pool every day, looks like from his pictures.
Living the hard life.
No, we love Court. Court is the best. But yeah, check out PlayStation Generation. We also have Remember 64 joining the site officially, so you can check out Dave's Nintendo podcasts on Spotify and wherever you listen to your feeds. But other than that, yeah, stick around. We've got lots of stuff on consolecreatures.com. We've got, you know, YouTube, we've got TikTok. You can check us out on your favorite social feed, and we're there. But until next time, yeah, thanks for listening.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
Peace.